That doesn't mean that I haven't made decisions that I wish I could take back. But in all of those decisions and in all of the turns and all the ups and the downs and the backs and the forth and just the craziness of life, God has remained faithful. And I do mean faithful. I think my largest testimony, my biggest story is probably just about the faithfulness of God. Um, as you know, been a church girl my whole life. All I've known. But that doesn't mean that life hasn't been easy. That doesn't mean that I haven't made mistakes. That doesn't mean that I haven't slipped. That doesn't mean that I haven't made decisions that I wish I could take back. But in all of those decisions and in all of the turns and all the ups and the downs and the backs and the forth and just the craziness of life, God has remained faithful. And I do mean faithful. When I was, going through a marriage that I had no business being in, one that was, let's call it what it was. It was abusive on many levels. It was just the faithfulness of God and the people that He placed in my circle and that surrounded me and just loved me through that process. So I was able to see Him in that. When I thought, how are you possibly going to raise a child by yourself? Because we split up when my daughter was 3. It was just the faithfulness of God. How do you pay for daycare? How do you pay for rent? How do you keep food on the table? How do you do all these things on one single income in a city as crazy expensive as Toronto? That definitely the faithfulness of God, because when I didn't know where it was coming from, it was there. When I don't remember ever having to ask. It's like people would just pour out of themselves to me and through me to her. I remember at one point my mom looked at me and said, she does more than people that have two parents in the house, just because there was nothing that she couldn't do. Every sport that she wanted, any instrument that she wanted, whether it was dance, no matter what it was, the opportunities were always there. Again, because of the faithfulness of God and the love of the people that are around me. I think that God places us in families that He knows we need to be, and He does it at a time where He knows that it's what we need. So, being a middle child, God help me, I didn't understand, Lord, why would you stick me in the middle of this nonsense? Like, I wasn't the firstborn and only son, and I wasn't the baby girl. I was just some chick stuck in the middle. But in that role, I got to experience life through not only my experiences, but through my younger sister's experiences, which were so different from mine, and from my brother's experiences. I hung out with him and all his friends, so I knew more about guys growing up than most girls did, because that was my lived experience, just being around them all the time. You just never, looking back now from my midlife perspective, and looking at all the things that I've gone through and all the things that I've experienced and all the ups, the downs, it's like, wow, God, you were really present in every season of my life. You were present when I couldn't see you, when I didn't understand it, when I thought I was out here on my own living the good life. You were present, and you always guided me, and you always brought me back to center. I think that that's why I am so resolute in my faith. You couldn't shake me if you tried, because I'm not living off the stories of my mother or my grandparents or my aunts or my uncles. I'm not living off the faith of the ministers or anybody else. I'm living off my life experiences. I'm living off rent money showing up when there was no money in my account. I'm living off people dropping off food, clothing, whatever, when I didn't have it, without me ever saying a word. I've experienced God for myself. Nobody's got to tell me about it. It's funny because women are always talking about, the dream is to fall in love and, live happily ever after. And that seems to be the goal of a lot of young ladies growing up. Like everybody else, that was my goal. So of course I got married young, married my first boyfriend. Don't do that. And not recognizing life, not knowing what life was about, thinking that this was it. finding out that that wasn't it, but being able to drag myself out of the taboo, right? It's taboo to end a marriage. You're a church girl. Church girls don't get divorced. It's taboo to be a single mom. You can't raise a child by yourself. You know, you're a black girl. That's just stereotypical. You can't be that. But God, I never felt like I was that. I never felt like I was less than. I always recognized that I was a child of God, that He would take care of me, and that even when I couldn't see it and I didn't understand it, He would show up. So now my daughter, who is at the same age that, you know, I was when I got married, can look back and say, hey, I was with mom when we didn't have this and it showed up. You know, I was with mom when we didn't know how this was going to happen, but it happened. So not only do I have a lived faith, but she also has a lived faith. So as I was going through it, didn't understand it, didn't like it, thought the Lord had forsaken me. But looking back in hindsight, seeing where He's brought me from, seeing the lessons that I've learned, and more importantly, seeing the lessons that I have passed on about the faithfulness of God, the resilience of spirit of a young woman, the abilities of a young black woman to not only survive in this world, but conquer and do well. I mean, I am living the dream at this point in my life. I have accomplished things professionally that didn't seem to make sense. I've got a family that I'm extremely blessed to be a part of. None of that could have happened without the faithfulness of God and the learned resilience. So if I had to leave a message to any young woman, no matter what stage of your life it's in, whether you're in your early 20s and trying to find love, whether in your 30s and trying to climb up the career ladder, I have been in all those stages. And I can absolutely, definitively say without a shadow of a doubt, God was present in every season and He remained faithful. And even now, as I look to transition to the latter part of my life, He remains faithful. Don't give up.